We welcome you into the Small Ball Podcast alongside Christian Ennis. I'm Scott Ayers. We have producer Andy behind the scenes. But Christian, we have a special guest.
Yeah. Trevor is missing this show, therefore he's getting another tally, which brings his total up to 9. So right now, me and Trevor are tied with the most missed
9-9.
But I'm trying not to act too excited here. But we got my friend Brett, who is from Minnesota. Brett, tell us who you are and your fandom.
Yeah, like you said, my name is Brett. I am from Minnesota. I have been a Minnesota sports fan my entire life.
Sorry.
I know we have not a lot of championships to speak for. I was born in '96, so truthfully, no championships in any sport. Oh, that's not true. 3 Lynx championships.
Oh,
and so,
yeah. How can you forget?
Every other year, we're the New York or the San Francisco Giants of women's basketball. So, yes, shout out to Maya Moore. But outside of that, not a lot of championships, but basketball, always loved basketball. So I've been a big Wolves fan for a long time, but even a bigger Wolves fan for the last 10, 15 years. And so my family's had season tickets to the Minnesota Timberwolves for I think about 10 years now.
Wow.
Which first year, Andrew Wiggins rookie year, 16 wins. We've seen a lot.
Nice, a lot of success.
I was gonna say we've already doubled our win total, 51 games in. So it's been a grind, but just
welcome.
Were you
not a fair weather fan?
Did you guys have season tickets when you had the Pekovic and the Rubio team? A starting 5 of just all white guys.
No, it was 2014 was our first year. Those were the real good days of Minnesota Timberwolves fandom, where it was Rubio, Luke Ridnour, Kirilenko for a year. We had K-Love, Pekovic, Alexei Shved.
Sure.
A lot of guys, a lot of
names.
Yes, a lot of names that no longer play basketball. But I mean, we saw Rubio for a couple years, and he came back. Pekovic was there maybe for a year or two.
Pekovic was a tank. People forget.
Yes.
Don't even know who he is.
He, I heard Flip Saunders once yell at a ref and say, "You're only calling that because he's the strongest man in the league,"
Nice.
which was true at the time. Truthfully, probably one of the strongest men to ever step foot on an NBA court.
He was nuts, dude. I think he was built in a lot.
That's the claim to fame for the T-Wolves.
Yes, and I believe right now I've heard rumors he's running some sort of Russian mafia or something.
Nice.
I believe it.
I mean, 6'11", 300 pounds of pure muscle. That's a good guy to have on your squad.
Fun fact, I actually applied to work in the Wolves organization at one point.
Really?
Yeah, to be a ticket, to work selling ticket packages and everything. But they asked me if I knew how to upsell, and I'm just so for the people, I wasn't good at upselling, so I didn't get the job.
So they just straight up asked you that?
Yeah, they were essentially how do you upsell? And I'm like, I don't know.
What's up, Sal?
Yeah, it was along those lines. And a buddy was trying to help me get the job, and he's like, dude, why'd you do that? I was like, I don't know how to upsell, man. That's not my DNA. I'm for the people.
Absolutely.
Upselling is anti-people.
I need you as my ticket rep.
Yes. Your ticket guy's probably only upselling you.
That's true. That he is. It's funny how Timberwolves get good and ticket prices go up. So
what kids?
Yeah, seriously, how does that work?
Let's respect the people who've been loyal.
Come on, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Yeah, I applied for that job. Yeah, so I know a guy in Minnesota. I just call him upsell guy because he works for the Wolves.
Wait, so you lived in Nebraska and you're like, I think I want to move to Minnesota?
Well, it was because I still want to work in sports.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who has a friend that works for the Wolves. He's like, hey, I can get you in. I applied, got an interview, and I was like, I'm so back. This is going to be perfect. And then they're like, tell us about upselling. I was like, dude, I don't know how to upsell. So the lady was really nice, but she was like, hey, maybe at a later time you can look into this role.
I like how they didn't look at you as a project. They didn't want to try coaching you or training you. They're just like,
I could have been a project.
Yeah.
I could have sold so many tickets.
You could have been the Giannis Antetokounmpo
of ticket sales.
It's true. And we probably needed someone like you when we were winning 16, 20 games a year because they were trying to upsell. They're like, this team might be good someday. And so you've been let's just get you in, right? It's all about getting fans in the building. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this was a very good tidbit because I'm not sure how the rest of this show will go. It's a trade deadline special.
Yep.
And this trade deadline was anything but special. Just mid-trade after mid. The trade that summarizes this deadline was Dennis Schroeder and Thaddeus Young for Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah, that one was a tough one. That was a kind of a head scratcher one of just like, all right, so this deserves a Woj tweet, an actual alert that, you know, 2 players that no one's thinking about, or 3 players I should say, that no one has probably thought about for the last 3 years is now getting traded for each other. And now Dinwiddie is going to get bought out, and now it's the question of where is he going to go? Is he going to go to the Lakers? Is he going to go back to the Mavs? Honestly, the buyout market is one of those things where I'm like, these guys don't actually move the needle, but people think that the buyout market moves the needle.
It's true, and it's interesting. You think about like Dennis Schrader, and I guess Dinwiddie. I felt like the only reason they got moved is because neither of them wanted to play for their current teams. So like, well, let's just swap them, I guess, and put Thad Young in there. But yeah, I feel like Dinwiddie is a guy who, I mean, there was rumors that he wasn't trying this year. Stats are down, you know, because he just didn't want to play for the Nets anymore. And so it'll be interesting to see if all of a sudden, you know, he starts playing well again. I mean, who knows how good Schrader really is. You know, he's a solid defender. I think I've seen a lot of Wolves games where I hated watching him guard our best players. And so I feel like he's still got some left in his tank, but I mean, the Nets and the Raptors are both kind of just those mid-Eastern Conference teams, which is kind of like the worst place to be.
Yeah, Dennis is one of those guys where I'm like, I want him on my team, and I hate playing against him. Yeah. Like, there's just like his back in his OKC days. Like, he's just, to me, he's still a menace, and he can still like perform well. And it's kind of a bummer to see that he didn't go to like a Milwaukee Bucks or, you know, a contending team. So we'll see. I mean, it could be fun with him in Brooklyn. I don't know if it doesn't make me tune in.
Yeah.
But
and as a Nuggets fan, I will say my whole goal of this trade deadline was how are the teams around me doing? So when Kelly Olynyk goes to Toronto, when I see Alec Burks and company, they go to New York, that makes me feel better as a Nuggets fan. Now, the Dallas Mavericks got better this trade deadline. I would say they're probably one of the winners, trading away Grant Williams. Who did they get again?
They got
Gafford.
P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford.
That's right.
Yep.
That is how you solidify, you know, your starting 5. Daniel Gafford, he just needs to stay on the court, but if he's able to do that, the Mavericks become a little bit scarier team in the West.
I mean, Gafford is having a sneaky good year. I mean, he was playing in Washington, but Gafford is a guy who is a good defensive center, who's a lob threat, which is going to be great for Luka and Kyrie. I mean, we're playing Derek Lively right now, and Derek Lively is good, but at the end of the day, he's a rookie.
Totally.
So, I mean, Gafford, I think, is a good upgrade, and I think P.J. Washington is going to surprise people. I mean, he's played in Charlotte. Like, no one really pays attention. P.J. Washington can light it up. There's been a couple times where he's gone for 50 points.
For sure.
Like, you don't just drop 50 points in a game. Like, you're a good basketball player if you can do that.
Unless you're Corey Brewer. He might someday just, one day for the Wolves, drop 50 points. But, it is interesting because the Mavericks right now, you think Lively's been hurt, and, you think about who else is playing center for them, and it's Dwight Powell, and it was Rashawn Holmes who's no longer there, and then Maxi Kleber. Those are all guys that if it was my team, I don't want them starting at center for me, none of them. And so having just a backup for like a Lively that plays very similarly, maybe a little bit smaller, but like athletic, good at blocking shots, and like can catch a lob, which is truthfully all Luka really needs in a center. I feel like it's kind of similar to LeBron, in the sense that he just needs someone that sets screens, gets offensive rebounds and can dunk the ball, and the rest of the team can shoot, and they're going to be just fine. So.
I'm interested to see if the Mavericks start Gafford over Lively. I think they should.
I think so too.
Gafford's the better player.
I agree.
But Lively's done a really good job in his role this year when he's playing. So it's not like, it's like he's a young talent. We don't want him to kind of, have some self-confidence issues because, he essentially is getting demoted to backup. But, yeah, man, the Mavs got better. And then, we don't talk about them a ton, but the Phoenix Suns getting Royce O'Neal is a great trade for them.
Yeah.
They did they traded 4 bums and 3 second-round picks.
I was going to say, there is something hilarious because what we heard before the season with these free agency signings from the Suns was, wow, they got some really good cheap guys. And you know what? You know why those guys were cheap? Because they stink at basketball. And so it is an upgrade because you are essentially trading all guys who stink at basketball. Keita Bates-Diop was never good in his career, and we were told to believe he was going to be a needle mover in Phoenix. He wasn't. And so this is a trade now that you have another dependable role player to go along with Grayson Allen to hopefully be competitive in a West that is very, very deep.
Yeah, I'm curious of how much better Royce makes the team. I don't think it's like a drastic thing where it's like they're just kind of dominating the NBA. But at the same time, like we haven't really seen the Suns at full force.
Yeah.
There was that stretch where they went on like a 6-game win streak. We're like, oh, frick, did they figure it out? And then they kind of went back to their old ways. So Suns are a team to watch. I wonder if they're able to kind of get out of the play-in. They're currently 5th in the West right now. And I'm interested to see if they can stay out of the play-in. Because, the Pelicans have shown signs of being good. The Kings are up and down. The Mavs got better. I still don't think, obviously the Lakers did nothing, so they're
awesome,
which is great for the league.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's I don't see the Lakers as a threat. I think maybe the Jazz probably drop a little bit. Do the Warriors sneak in? Can the Rockets get in? I'm surprised the Rockets didn't make a move.
Yeah. But I think that kind of goes into this next point, whereas the deadline isn't as big of a mover as I think we think it is, because even with the big moves, it's last year we saw a couple of big moves. We see Kevin Durant go to Phoenix, and you're like, wow, that could be it. Kyrie goes to Dallas. Yeah, wow, Dallas is, and then they kind of just fizzled out in their own respected ways. So I think for some of these teams that aren't making trades, the Lakers are interesting because their window is tight because LeBron is becoming a grandfather.
Is closed. This is their last year.
Agreed. Whereas Houston, if you don't make a trade, I get it because maybe you can get something in free agency. That's kind of what you bank off of. But it is interesting, and I am curious to hear what you guys think. Biggest winners and losers of this trade deadline.
I think, truthfully, one of the biggest losers, which, they've been a loser all year, the Detroit Pistons. I just feel like unfortunately, they're beating up on teams all of a sudden, but I think I feel like they just gave out a lot of pieces. As a Wolves fan, I'm so grateful they gave us Monte Morris.
Right.
I feel bad for Troy Brown Jr. Love him. Didn't have a chance for some reason, but they got Shake Milton, which, I never, every time he touched the floor, we lost. We played losing basketball, and so that's Pistons culture. So maybe they are. He probably fits right in. Alec Burks and Bogdanovich, I feel like they kind of gave him away for pennies. And both of those guys could have been guys that you got more picks out of. It just felt like they got rid of Kevin Knox again, which feel bad for the guy. He signs with the Pistons, just keeps getting traded away at the deadline.
And then he gets waived, and then he gets signed by the Pistons again.
It's a horrible,
the unending
cycle,
glitch. But
and they waived Killian Hayes.
Yes,
which is kind of funny. You would think a guy that's he was just in the draft a couple years ago, top 10 pick, and he's just waived.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's funny is Hayes had asked for a trade a couple days earlier, and the response was, yeah, no, your trade is you can start flipping burgers.
It's funny. I saw a tweet probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was an actual Vegas line of where is Killian Hayes' next team going to be, and you saw the Shanghai Sharks legitimately on that list, and other teams in France and across the sea, and so when that's the case, there's not a lot of actual teams that want that guy. I think I saw a stat today that since 2020, he has the lowest plus minus out of any player.
That's special.
So maybe the Pistons are going to start winning now that they don't, for some reason, feel like they have to play Killian Hayes. But yeah, to waive him felt like just a weird move at this point. Felt like something the Lakers might have wanted him for like a second round pick. Who knows? But to get nothing and just to get rid of a 2021 was he seventh? Was it 2020 or 2021?
I think it was 21.
21.
Yeah, like the 7th overall pick. I mean, you don't really think about like, a 7th overall pick can't really, it's not the first overall pick, but like when it comes to 7th overall picks, I don't know if there's much more of a bust, at least in recent history.
Yeah,
So,
I think of maybe Emmanuel Mudiay of the
Right.
Denver Nuggets,
Right.
who was also, I thought Mudiay was going to be just the coolest guy in the world.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can make an argument that, like, maybe Obi Toppin, but,
Ain't no stopping.
Obi Toppin has even just kind of revitalized his career a little
For sure.
bit in Indiana.
For sure.
There's so many losers, I feel like, in this trade deadline. One team that I think is two teams that I kind of want to just mention real quick. Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls have not made a trade during the season since 2021. And that trade was they traded Lauri Markkanen and a second round pick they traded Lauri Markkanen for Derek Jones Jr. and a second round pick.
It's
And
just
now,
so terrible.
now Lauri Markkanen is an all-star. He is a stud. He found a role in Utah. He was great in Cleveland. I mean, Andy liked him. Right, Andy?
Tell him, Andy.
Yeah, I did like him. He did pretty good. I thought he gave like a lot of good defense to the Cavs team that kind of defined that season.
Giantly tall Cavs team.
That was a
Yeah,
nuts.
because it was like 4 like really tall players, and like I even remember because he was playing during the COVID years
Right.
that they had an all center team, and it was really
nuts.
Yeah, it was really goofy.
But
he
yeah,
did
the Bulls just continue to be stuck in purgatory of mediocrity, and a team that kind of has followed them as well is the Atlanta Hawks. Like
Yeah.
we heard so many rumors about the Hawks. What did they do? Did
Nothing.
they trade anyone?
No,
Nothing.
DeJounte didn't get moved. Okongwu's still, Capella's still there.
Bogdanovich?
Yeah.
Everyone.
for nothing.
Nothing. They traded absolutely no one, which is just so wild to hear. I mean, maybe I know the Bulls kind of look at the East and where they're at right now. They're in the play-in right now, and they're like, we're going to stay and push for play-in and then hopefully get in the playoffs. And I think the Hawks are kind of in that same mindset. And it's just like,
Oh,
come on. You guys got to know when to sell.
when to fold them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And, I feel like this was an opportunity for them to sell. Maybe we see them selling more in the summer.
It's dumb, especially because the team that I will say as the winner are the New York Knicks, because they already had made a great trade acquiring OG, and that had paid dividends for how well they've played of late. OG now going to be out 3 weeks for a surgery on his elbow. But still, now you add to that rotation and to that bench with Alec Burks and Bohan. They now become already the third best team in the East. They are going to give Boston and Milwaukee fits. I'm not going to sit up here and say that they're now the number 1 or number 2 team. But if I am one of those 2 top teams, I want to make sure I don't see New York until the Eastern Conference Finals.
For sure. New York is one of those teams, and I think Boston, obviously Boston, Milwaukee have those, like the elite starting fives, right? Like they're going to have 2 of the best starting fives in the NBA, but like when it comes down to, you can't start 5 players for an entire playoffs. And so I think adding that depth for the Knicks, which truthfully knowing Tom Thibodeau,
Who knows if they play?
I was going to say, who's to say like who plays even, but like they're both players that I feel like Tibbs just love, like just dogs who are going to go out and, do whatever he asks them to do essentially, not necessarily defensive minded players, but he doesn't care. He just wants dogs. And so both those players I feel like fit their culture and will definitely contribute to winning basketball. So.
Alec Burks played for the Knicks like a couple years ago.
He
under
did.
Tibbs. So
Right.
he knows Tibbs, and Tibbs loves him.
Right.
But I mean, to kind of talk on the opposite side of that trade, man, Quentin Grimes, he played this all wrong. You know, he was disgruntled in New York. He asked out. And where did he end up? Detroit. Like, literally the worst place you could end up in the NBA right now. So it's like, man, talk about just playing your cards way wrong.
Horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Way wrong. But
Horribly wrong.
But I do agree with you, Brett, that like the Knicks, man, I like them a lot. We kind of focus on small market teams, but you gotta tip your hat to the Knicks. I mean, I feel like their GM might even deserve, executive of the year potentially.
The Small Ball Podcast Executive of the Year.
To the big market.
Wow, we would be under heat if we did that. We
seriously.
can't. We take that back. He can't win that award.
To say the one nice thing about if we want to look at one Quentin Grimes win, he's playing with his good buddy Marcus Sasser again. They played at Houston for a year together, and so
That's right.
they have the team chemistry. Maybe they'll bring that winning culture to Detroit now. So.
They just need to hire Kelvin Sampson.
That's true.
Bang.
We've kind of talked about Pistons a lot this episode, but I do want to say that they've won like 4 out of 6. Or
They're hot.
4 out of 10 games this year.
They
which
are
is like,
hot.
They smoked the Thunder.
Well, they beat the Kings last night by like 13, so it's like they're winning games.
Yeah.
And most of the time, or most of these games, Cade's been out. So when do we start asking? When do we trade Cade?
It's time to sell.
Yeah, true. I mean, I would love to see how many games Cade has actually won. I feel like most of their games they've won have been without Cade. Maybe,
Yeah, I think
he maybe won 1 or 2 games.
He's
this year?
won 2 games with the Pistons.
Oh my goodness. And they have, 8 wins, 7 wins?
I
now?
don't know what that would do to my psyche if I was like 2-40 as a player.
I don't know.
I mean, you just know losing.
Your will
Right.
to live is gotta be
It's
very
low.
Because,
So-
I mean, I'm just a fan, and whenever the Kings play bad and they lose, I'm like, I'm genuinely I'm more sad.
True.
Oh, 100%. And they're playing. And they probably just carry that everywhere they go. The checkout aisle.
Yeah.
The dog park.
The dog park. I mean, any place they're visiting, it is just filled with sadness and knowing Monty is going to have a bad game plan. It's just hard.
It's very hard.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
Brett, I want to give you the floor here.
Okay.
We've talked about some trades. Very rarely, though, do we get a Minnesota Timberwolves expert in the
Inside.
studio. So we want to give you a minute.
Okay.
I want to hear your actual thoughts on the T-Wolves.
Yep.
Is this the year?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, tell us why. If so, tell us why. Your minute starts now.
All right, perfect. Minnesota Timberwolves are, I think, if there ever was a chance for us to win a championship, it's probably this year, just because of a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously we got, I think, one of the most talented rosters in the NBA, just from 1 through 8. Which truthfully, you think about a playoff roster, it's 8 or 9, players playing anyways. And so 1 through 8, I think, truthfully. And then, you throw, if Kyle Anderson can play like he did last year, maybe 1 through 9. And so, don't need to mention too much on Kyle, but we love Slow-Mo, for who he is. So
That's right. Hey, way to defend him.
absolutely. But all to say that I think Anthony Edwards has proven that he's taking a leap. And I think he kind of went from, everyone went from he's taking this big leap. And now, you say, maybe he's plateaued a little bit. I think he's definitely got plenty to work on, but I think, truthfully, taking a leap, it doesn't mean he has to take the leap every day. I think he's still getting better every day. I think the biggest thing he's done this year is playmaking, which as a player he's never done. You look at he's always just been a bucket getter. And so to have a guy go from that to now have multiple games with 10 plus assists this year, I think that's just showing growth. And as a 22-year-old, that's, I think, for me, exactly what you're looking for in a 22-year-old. And so him, obviously Karl Anthony Towns, best big man shooter of all time. I have no doubt, 3-point contest, gonna go back to, I guess, maybe not back to back, but he was injured last year. So gonna win it again this year. I think when he took 16 threes the other day, he made 7 of them, so shot 43%. I truly wish he took 10 to 15 threes every game, because he had multiple games this year. He's just 5 for 5, 6 for 7, 5 for 6. take 10 more. You know, what's the worst that could happen? You miss 6 of them, you make 2 of them, like that's still pretty good. So I think those two combined with the Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert, I think there's no doubt that he's going to not only win that this year, but lead us in the playoffs. I think him being a defensive liability in the playoffs is a tired take that I think any true Jazz fan would say that's not true. It was the rest of our team that couldn't guard, and you know Rudy was the only player that could help our defense. And so hearing that, all of a sudden, you know, we have guys like Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Don't punch any brick walls.
Yeah, don't. Hey, to be fair, it did look like a curtain, and so I don't. Yeah, I think if there was ever a year that we were going to win, this could be our year because I think defense wins championships, and we're the number 1 defense in the NBA. And so the one thing the biggest thing I think every Wolves fan worry about is currently I would say our IQ just being, you know, our best players are still pretty young, and so you have guys like Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels making those late game mistakes, which is why, you know, truthfully having a guy like Mike Conley instead of a D'Lo, you know, which I would say D'Lo, truthfully.
I was gonna say really quick,
Go ahead.
that trade was so smart for Minnesota because D'Lo, IQ, it's like our 3 brain cells combined.
True.
On the basketball floor. And Mike Conley, he's a vet. He's not the same type of scorer or anything, but you don't need that for this team.
No, and I agree with that. And I think Mike Conley being 37, having the experience he has, and I mean shooting a career high from 3 this year, and just running our offense how it's supposed to be, and just having, you know, because Chris Finch can't go out there and dribble the basketball. You know, he can't dunk the basketball like Anthony Edwards can, and so he's only out there on the sidelines. And so to have a guy like Mike Conley on the floor with the team, kind of like being that on-court coach, especially in late games, like is a big reason our games recently we've struggled late games because he's been out a lot of those games, and like you take the ball out of your smartest players' hands, you put them into a couple young guys, like they're going to make mistakes like they have. And so that, and then obviously now like getting Monte Morris, having a guy who, I mean, career 39% three-point shooter, got, you know, second highest, I believe, assist to turnover ratio in the last 5 years behind only Minnesota native Tyus Jones.
Bang.
Shout out. I think having him off of our bench is a huge, like, you know, Mike Conley's not going to play more than 25 to maybe 29 minutes in a regular season game, and so having a guy that you can actually trust to go out there when like he, you know, and move the ball, run our offense like he does, I think makes a huge difference. And hopefully, you know, we get one more guy. We're at 13 guys, and I think technically we have to sign one more guy. And so I'm looking at the buyout market, looking at shooters, looking at like a Joe Harris or. You know, dream situation was Dougie McBuckets. Love that guy. But he's a Pacer, so. But having someone that like is going to be that shooter. I mean, obviously Dinwiddie would be cool, but like I don't think he's going to come to Minnesota personally. No. I think someone's going to just outbid us, and you know there are other guys that, you know, Oladipo just got waived, and so I don't think we
Does
need.
Oladipo still play basketball? I feel like he's like been injured for the past 5 years.
Yeah, he was a Rocket, which was a surprise to me because I've never even seen him on the bench, and so. No. He was enjoying getting paid. I don't know, but I think, you know, him or, you know, I don't think like if he's hurt, obviously don't pick him up. But you know, guys like them who are bucket getters, there's someone more to like. Because I think if our current bench has Naz Reid, who, you know, truthfully, in my opinion, you know, up there for 6th man of the year.
Yeah.
You know, I would, you know, this might be a take, but the greatest center handles of all time. You know, and so a very unique
conversation that is not talked about.
Not talked about enough. But you ever see a Naz Reid hit him with an in and out? You know, the defender doesn't know where he's going. And, you know, he was. I don't know if you guys remember the Jelly fam.
Yeah,
he was Big Jelly. So
dang.
Yeah, so the guy's got finesse in his game, bucket getter. But like outside of that, it's like we don't have a ton of scoring off our bench, and so just to get someone who's either gonna, you know, shoot for us, shoot 45% from 3, or just like go get buckets off our bench when Ant is on the bench or Carl's on the bench, or just like someone to go help us score a little bit. I think that's all we really need to
have a chance.
Have a chance, of course.
I like the idea of potentially like a Joe Harris joining you guys. I mean, he hasn't played in Detroit, so I don't know like really where he's at, you know, stamina wise and in shape wise.
And
but
his
like
last
the idea.
stint in Brooklyn, it wasn't a memorable one. Like, he had a good year, and then I think his second year he kind of tapered off, or his last year in Brooklyn. Right. So we'll see. The West is packed. West is packed.
And only getting better.
And it's always getting better. Mm-hmm. Christian, anything else?
I mean, I'm just, as a Kings fan, really just, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Yeah. Like, you know, we clearly need a little change, and we were hoping to be one of those teams that, you know, can cut around the edges and make some improvements. And we didn't. We traded for Robin Lopez and cash and consideration. So that's just a common theme in Sacramento is we just constantly trade for cash.
But hey, maybe he'll turn into his brother. You know, that shot blocking 3-point shooter.
He's getting waived.
He's getting waived.
Well, then, not in Sacramento at least.
So yeah. So that's just like my biggest takeaway is, you know, we lost to Detroit by like 13 last night, so I was sad about that. We go into the deadline, we do nothing, so that made me even more sad. And then teams that are around us, like the Suns and the Mavs, got better, in my opinion. So it's like, well, if the Kings are a playing team, I'm afraid. I don't know if we make it out. Yeah.
Did you want the Kings to trade for Siakam? I know they were in the Siakam talks for a long time before Indiana traded for him. Would you have liked that fit next to Sabonis?
I would have. I think it would have worked out. I mean, it would have relied on, you know, assuming we still had like a Herter and, you know, obviously Keegan. Like, it really depended on our 3-point shooting because, like, if we were just clanking shots, then it would have been kind of rough. I mean, Fox has been shooting really well this year. Sabonis does shoot the 3 well. He just shoots 1 to 2 a game.
Yep.
So it's like, but I think, you know, defensively, Siakam would have been nice to have. We need length. We just struggle. Like, the Pelicans dominate us, and so it would be nice if we could kind of fight those teams like the Wolves too,
right?
You know, that are a little bit longer than us, but it is
always free agency next year.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I think the summer, leading up to the summer, is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. More excited for what comes this playoff season, but a very long story short, very underwhelming trade deadline. Not a lot of crazy moves made. We got spoiled last year, but now the next thing we look to is the NBA playoffs. I don't even think about the All-Star game. NBA playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not even looking forward to the All-Star game.
No, it's going to be a
no Kings out there.
So what's the point of watching?
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, Jokic has never had an All-Star teammate, so.
You love that narrative.
I love that narrative so much.
There's a reason he's been probably a 2-time, maybe a 3-time MVP at this point. But
there's a reason for sure. I'm excited though, and I think I can leave it at that.
Yeah.
Brett, thank you for joining.
Hey, thank you guys for having me, for flying me out all the way from Minnesota. Absolutely. So,
Brett, where can people find you, man?
You know, you can find me all over the place. On Instagram if you want to, Brett J. Reinhardt. All I talk about is mortgage stuff. It's what I do for a living.
Show sponsor.
You know, I would love to talk more basketball, but, you know, I can't make money talking basketball quite yet. So.
That's why you came on Small Ball. Because Christian and I, we do make this for a living.
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah, so if you need a lender and you want to talk basketball, hit up Brett.
I'm your guy.
Bang. And if you need tickets, I'm your guy.
You won't upsell them.
I will not upsell you. I will get you good price tickets.
Yeah, you will.
Some team hire this man right now.
Please, I'm begging. Well, for our great producer Andy, our great special guest Brett, Christian and us, I'm Scudder. So we say so long for now. We will see you next week.
I haven't.